Hello everyone, welcome to Salsa Digital's webinar series. Today we are doing Drupal patching for Australian government. Just a quick housekeeping, we'll use the Q&A feature here in Teams, so please pop in your questions throughout the presentation and we will actually have some time reserved at the end to go over Q&As. And I'd like to introduce George, head of the support practice, and hand over to you, George.
Excellent. Thank you, Brendan, and yeah, welcome everyone. Yeah. Alrighty. I will start with a quick introduction about myself. All right. So my name is George Castro, and I'm the Salsa support practice lead, as Brendan said. What that means is I lead the support function in the practice within Salsa. I also run the service desk day to day as well. So I work with a variety of clients on Drupal and other open source technologies as well. So I thought I would mention that. A little bit about myself. I've been working in ICT delivery for about 20 years, a little bit more than that, showing my age. But yeah, both in corporate and government environments, including whole of government. Here in WA, I'm based in Perth. And I have a technical background. Yeah, I used to be a Drupal developer, a Drupal technical lead back in the day. And what that allowed me was to actually, as a transition to, more business functions, allow me to marry business requirements with the ever-changing needs of ICT operations. Because I know these days, security is at the heart of everything we do. So we really need to balance, business requirements and, those technical needs as well. So quick disclaimer, I'm not a security specialist by any means, any way, shape or form. And I'm not here to pretend to be one. So just wanted to get that out of the way as well. The reason I'm actually here today is just to share with you what has worked for me in the trenches. It is really coming from experience. I'll cover the topic at a high level. I know some of you have technical background, some of you have more business background, but there'll be other opportunities to do deep dives as well, so we can have different sessions. But in this particular one, what I'll do is I'll try and bring a fresh perspective on patching, which can be a little bit technical sometimes and hard to get our heads around, but I'll try and bring a fresh business perspective to the topic. So so with that, let's get started. Okay, quick agenda, the importance of patching, patching in the essentialite. As I said, not a deep dive. I'm not going to be going through the documentation and the strategies and all of that, but we'll touch on this and why it's important to align with essentialite, balancing risk and business impact, which I think it's the core of the presentation today. Patching at scale and some of the common pitfalls as well to avoid. And at the end, as Brendan said, we're going to have some time to do some Q&A. Okay, so the importance of patching. Patching is actually, it's non-negotiable for government websites. And it really comes down to two things, in my opinion. One is security. As I said, security is at the heart of everything we do these days, and really operational resilience. And by that, what I mean is business rely on, some of these sites that we all support, maintain, right? Patching helps with that. So, so first thing is patching is the primary defense against non-vulnerabilities. Something is out in the wild, we have to patch it, right? We know how to patch it. Patches are provided. If the sites are left unpatched, essentially it's an open invitation to attackers and hackers. So we really don't want to be doing that. And crucially, when you do patch, what you're actually doing in the context of government, you're actually protecting potentially sensitive citizen data in government systems, which I think it's quite a responsibility. Myself, I was in government for a number of years as well. So everyone in government, I think they feel responsible for that as well. So that's critical. And it's all about business continuity as well. So if something is exploited, that can lead to a data breach, significant downtime, and these outages are really costly. They cost, government, they cost, the citizens as well. So public trust is on the line as well. We don't want to be in that position. So regular, timely patching is the medicine that mitigates all of those risks. All right, so why patching matter as well is it's fundamental to comply with Essential 8 as an example, right? There could be other frameworks out there, but the point being, it's just not a technical requirement. It's a critical component to the overall cyber resilience, which essentially is what Essential 8 is all about. You start small and then you improve your maturity, and then you go up the levels in terms of Essential 8 compliance. In this particular session, we're going to be touching on patch applications, which is one of the mitigation strategies under the Essential 8 framework. In government sites, they're actually high-value targets because they can hold sensitive citizen information, and they often integrate with back office, government systems. So, hackers are sort of interested in that because it is the most precious thing that we have. It's our information, it's our data, which is stored in those systems. So we don't want to leave them vulnerable to sophisticated attacks and anything like that. So okay, so finally, I quickly touched on this. There is a lot of benefits, operational benefits that come from patching. We want to be able to deliver essential public services. The information provided in some of the Drupal websites, it is a public service. We all need access to to that information. Proactive patching will reduce the firefighting, the pressures on our IT systems, government IT systems. So it is crucial that we avoid like a massive financial and resource costs, just simply from recovering from a major incident or an unplanned outage as well. So we don't want to be in that position once again. So so a little bit on patching in the Essential 8. As I said, not going to do a deep dive on this, but touch on a few points. So for those of you who are not familiar, so the Essential 8 is Australia's foundational cybersecurity framework. It is specifically designed for government agencies, although corporate are very welcome to use it as well. And it essentially outlines key mitigation strategies, and I'm going to flash them up on the screen in a second. But as I said, we're covering patching applications. But what it does is it significantly helps organizations to build cyber resilience and to protect their systems as a result. So the reason why we talk it in the context of Drupal is that patching Drupal, specifically in the application layer, is directly linked to one of those strategies. By maintaining rigorous patching schedule, we're not just fixing bugs. As I said, it's not just a technical task. We're actually working to comply with those standards like the Essential 8. So and help with a national cyber standard as a result. So this is the list of mitigation strategies. We have got 18 there, yeah. So essentially, there are many other things that organizations should consider, which falls a little bit outside of this presentation today, but I just wanted to flash them up on the screen so they can actually see the scope of the essential aid and what it provides in terms of information and help to improve our cyber resilience. Yeah, as I said, we're going to be focusing on the patch application side of things, but there are many others to consider. Alrighty. Essentially, without going into the detail of all of the essential aids and what it prescribes and all of that, I just wanted to, at a very high level, just describe how we can comply with it. I know internal-facing systems, external-facing systems, they all have different requirements, but essentially, it comes down to those three, bullet points. Essentially, we start being vigilant, essentially monitoring patches in the context of Drupal, monitoring Drupal patches, including, Drupal core, contributed modules, third-party dependencies, to really quickly close those vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. So we prevent something from happening, essentially. The second thing is it has to be regular. No point in doing this today and then forgetting for 6 months and then doing it again. It is something that we have to be on top of. So we have to come up with a routine and update, our sites. And as I said, not just Drupal core, but the other components as well. And finally, it's about striving for improvement. We don't want to meet just the minimum requirements, right? We want to improve maturity levels, and we can touch on that a little bit later as well. But it's doing what works for you now, but do something, and then you can improve on how you do things over time and as you mature. And I'm going to talk about some things that might help you with that as well. Okay, so essentially, maturity levels at a very, high level. Once again, level 1 is the starting point. Patching can be, basic, can be manual. Just do it. Even if it's manual, do it. Don't leave your sites unpatched. And in the beginning, it can be reactive, because you don't have the processes in place. But as you mature to something like a level 2, you can introduce better testing. You might be able to introduce even some level of automation as well. But the process is still fairly manual, not fully integrated, but you're making some progress. Level 3 is your target state, essentially. And here we see highly automated patching processes and integrated testing and, scheduled updates, and you streamline your whole deployment, essentially. What you're looking for is, stability, consistency, and low risk to your business and your users. So think about that as well. Risk is always something that is to be considered. If you have a good process in place, you can do your patching, in a consistent way and low risk as well. Okay. Balancing risk and business impact. I said this is quite an interesting. It's actually what triggered me to come up with this presentation. So you must constantly weigh the risk of leaving the vulnerability unpatched, because the reason is because patching is here to solve something, right? It's a vulnerability that needs to be patched, but at the same time, it's a change to your systems. So don't forget, it is a change to your systems. We've seen, companies recently on the news because of a bad patch. I'm not going to name them here, but what it means is just, leaves you thinking, I need to balance, patching, rushing to patch. How do I patch with, the benefits and the risks as well? But the ultimate goal is, as I said, it's to minimize the risks. So creating a structured process will help you evaluate, test, and deploy patches. And test is a big thing as well. We're going to talk about this in a moment. So just building on the idea of risk management, something that I personally really like, it is crucial to understand that not all patches are equal. Some are designed to resolve critical issues. If you see something that's highly critical, for example, that will raise fire alarms. They address vulnerabilities that could actually have catastrophic impact. Data breaches, complete website compromise, they have to be addressed with the highest urgency. So no doubt about that. But you also have non-critical patches, still important. They will resolve, small bugs, performance improvements if they're not security related. But they can also address less severe security issues as well. So whatever strategy you come up with, it must clearly define a process for classifying, prioritizing, and responding to both critical and non-critical patches. And Essential 8, as I said, I'm not going to go through the details here, but it does provide you with a clear framework on how to prioritize and what to act and when as well, depending on your situation. Okay, so some risk mitigation strategies, and this might be, I might be stating the obvious, but don't just comply with the patch and just apply the patch. Manage the whole process from start to finish, right? Ensure that the patches, they undergo a very rigorous, testing process, because this is your insurance policy. Testing a staging environment, catch the issues early, don't let the patches, affect your website in a negative way. It's keeping this step can really be one of the biggest cause of problems and unplanned outages as well. As I said, recent companies have been on the news because of maybe a lack of patching, or testing, I should say. Do as much testing as you possibly can, if you can afford it and if you have the time. The other thing as well is communicate effectively with your stakeholders. Minimize the business impact. If your stakeholders rely on those services, work with them. When is the good time to apply the patch? Is it going to take the website down? For how long? Understand all of those variables and work with your business to minimize the impact to their operations. Set some expectations. You could have scheduled maintenance windows. You can provide upgrade, update on the progress if it's something that's going to take really long. So once it's finished, it's back to business as usual. Explain what the patching achieves. If it's a critical patch, explain the situation and how it will help them continue to use the platform that they use. All right, so moving to patching at scale. Once again, might be stating the obvious, but the cornerstone of scaling is automation. Especially now with the introduction of AI and other tools, we realize, we're just humans, and humans have limited capacity, and we can make human errors as well. So automation can streamline the entire process. Again, you can start small, and automate parts of it, but ultimately the end goal is to automate as much as you can, because automation brings efficiency, it brings consistency, and as I said, it removes the human error from the process as well. Some of the tools that you might want to look at for Drupal specifically, you could be using tools like Drush, if you know what it is. It is a command line tool that allows you to do a lot of automation, integrates beautifully with Drupal. So if you are technical, have a technical background, definitely look that up. If you have a program of sites or systems that you manage, you might want to look at some orchestration across environment. across different sites and across environments as well. So you could look at tools like Ansible. It's just one of them. There are many others. There is a new tool every day, so you might want to look at other options as well. So Ansible is something that I've worked with and I found was quite useful as well. But finally, look to apply the patches, even if you use the automation during scheduled maintenance windows. It's non-negotiable, to not manage expectations, always manage expectations, minimize disruption to your users, and in the context of government, essential services. All right, other points on techniques. Run automated tests if you can, if you have them. It's not a technical session, but I'm sure you'll be able to find information about running tests for Drupal or running end-to-end tests for your website as well. Invest in those, identify your critical functions, and you start with those ones first, and then move on to the less critical functions until you have enough coverage to give you the confidence to patch with confidence. If functionality breaks, the patch has failed. So go back and fix what's wrong until it's working for you. And finally, as well, just no matter how good your testing is, have an emergency exit. Have a rollback plan. Don't ever change anything in a production website without a rollback plan. Things go wrong from time to time, and that is your insurance policy as well. Alrighty, a little bit more. I think that's the last one in terms of techniques, but monitor. Once you apply your patch, just monitor a little bit after applying the patch. Monitor for performance, monitor for stability. You could use tools like Uptime or Pingdom. Just some examples. Immediately after patching, as your users start using the websites and the core functions, look for something that's a little bit off, a little bit unusual, and do some investigation. Intervening early helps you, get on top of issues before they become big problems. Specifically for Drupal, look at the application logs in real time if you can. As issues are raised and Drupal can't handle them, they will surface in the logs and look for spikes in the error rates, unusual. Anything unusual, as I said, anything unusual might help indicate what could be wrong with the patch. And you can quickly roll back if you know what it is, again, minimizing the business impact. Alrighty, some of the common pitfalls to avoid. I touched on this before, and it's quite funny. Skipping testing is actually driving a car without checking the tires first. Like, why would you do that? I'm a cyclist myself. I pump the tires, check them in the morning before I head out for a ride. Why would I not do that and risk a flat, 5 minutes from my house? So similarly, do your testing. Don't apply without testing and checking those patches. And don't ignore the small ones either. It may be very easy to just ignore them and just say, look, it's a small patch. It's not important. Drupal says it's not critical. Let's just forget about it. Let's focus on those, shiny new features. Yeah, the shiny new features are really important, but you neglect security, you neglect your patches. They build up. They become something a bit more complex to deal with, and then it becomes something that's high risk, high impact to your business. So if you're on top of the patches, patch small, patch often, you don't have to deal with complex patches. The other common mistake is, don't apply too many at once. I've just said, patch small, patch often if you can. A lot of patches will confuse you and will confuse your team as well. You don't want to be doing that. It's always the best practice to deploy small, focused, to maintain, clear traceability. And, as I said, patches are changes to your websites. Changes must be documented. Failing to track and document which patches were applied, when, and by whom as well, can lead to confusion down the track. So, when you're trying to diagnose a problem, it would be good to know those things, because then you can trace back where the issue might have come from. And lastly, prioritize patches by criticality. Have a systematic way to decide, this is a highly critical patch, that is a non-critical patch. What do I patch first? Use Drupal's vulnerability scoring system. Every single patch that Drupal releases will come up with a vulnerability score. It will say it is highly critical, it's non-critical. Just use that to help you prioritize what to patch and when as well. And one thing that people don't really touch on, but patching cannot be a task that just leaves with one or two people in the organization. Try to create a culture of patching, integrate it into your core system, into your core workflow. Educate your business stakeholders, not just the technical teams, on the importance, on the urgency of patching. When everyone understands the why behind it, it really becomes a collective effort, and the success of patching can rely on that as well. Essentially get buy-in from everyone in the organization if everyone is on the same page. So look into that if you can as well. All right, so some of the key takeaways, because taking me a lot longer to get through this than I anticipated. But first one is prioritize. Prioritize patching based on vulnerability, as I just said, and the potential business impact. Avoid some of the common pitfalls that I mentioned. Don't skip through testing. Do your testing. Don't delay small patches. They do build up. Automate if you can. Bring consistency to your processes. And do it regularly. Don't do it today and then in 6 months and then in 12 months. Just keep on top of it. And essentially that's it from me today. Back to you, Brandon. I don't know if we've had any questions.
Just had a couple of questions. So if anybody else in the room wants to jump on with their question before we end the session. So George, I have one here. It says, does the size or complexity of the site impact patching cycles or cadence?
Well, that's a good question. It shouldn't impact the cadence, but it does impact complexity, right? Size, if I'm understanding correctly, and that's my understanding of the question, big site in terms of functionality, or big site in terms of usage. If it's in terms of functionality, it requires a lot of essentially code behind it to actually build its functions, and code requires effort to maintain and patch. So the more Drupal modules, for example, you have on your website, the more often there will be patches for them. So you have to take that into consideration. But in terms of cadence, follow a regular cadence. That would be my recommendation. And prioritize as always, but unfortunately it does add complexity to the patching management.
Great. I've got another question here. What strategies or tools can you recommend to help streamline testing to avoid human error?
Good. Look, I think I touched on some of them, but I think the first strategy is identify the critical functions of the system. If you have a BA, or if you understand your sites really well, write them down, give them to your IT team, and have them, look at the system and find ways to test it. There are a number of ways. We can go a little bit technical, but you could use tools like, without naming them, but you could use tools that test your functionality from end to end. As a user, of your system, clicking through things, entering, data in forms and things like this. But critically is understanding what's critical to you. I think that's the most important. The tool, we can talk about tools, but at the end of the day is whatever works for you in your organization. Just use whatever works. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you cover those critical functions. You can patch with confidence, and you can give that confidence to your business as well and your users.
One more question here. Are there any interesting situations you can share from your 20 years of experience in this space?
Interesting. Well, that put me on the spot. There would be a few. There would be quite a few. Look, interesting situations. Yeah, there would be plenty. I don't know how interesting. Maybe if the person can elaborate a little bit more, how interesting. But yeah, I've had patches, bad patches that, took days to recover, right? Some people might consider that interesting. I consider that a disaster. But essentially, what saved me and my team was having that solid rollback plan, right? And from experience as well, one of the considerations is have your business work with you when things don't go wrong, when things don't go well. And I say that because in this example, the rollback took actually a lot longer than anticipated. So working with the business, we were able to make decisions to help mitigate the issues caused by the bad patch, right? So yeah, interesting in a sense that it wasn't just me, it wasn't just the IT people working through it. We brought in the business to actually help, us make some business decisions that actually helped us restore services that were a priority first, to restore critical functions, and then move on to the not so critical functions. So yeah, there are many examples, but this was a really good example that I like to bring up, because it really brings the business into something that usually is quite technical, and people think it's it's an IT responsibility, but the reality is it is a collective effort.
Great. I got a great question here, and maybe this is a final call for questions. If there's nothing after this, we might end the session. So this last question is, as the project grows in complexity with more and more dependencies, is it better to apply patches as they are released, or bundle them up into a release and deploy them at the end of every quarter?
Yeah, interesting. Look, patches will always come. They will not stop. As I said, security is at the heart of what we do these days. So just assess the impact of those patches. If you have highly critical patches coming in every day, every week, because you have a lot of dependencies, well, my recommendation would be maybe go back and revisit your solution, try and see what's wrong with what it is that you're using first. And if you can't really resolve that, as I said, prioritize, follow the framework that I just mentioned. Prioritize the highly critical, separate them from the non-critical, and continuously patch. Don't stop. I think every quarter might be too long, and I don't think it complies with the Essential 8, without going into the detail, but I don't think it complies with the Essential 8. Yeah, just weighing the, business risk versus the benefits of applying the patch. But yeah, I think applying them often, more regularly, would be the way to go.
Right, and there's no more questions now. So George, I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone attending. We will make a copy of this available in the coming days, and we'll send it out to everyone an email. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reply to that email. George will be happy to respond and provide any guidance. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.